In October 1907, Carnegie Hall in New York City stood at West 57th Street and 7th Avenue, captured on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. This image preserves a detailed view of the historic concert venue. Around 1915, the Mount Adams Incline in Cincinnati, Ohio, is captured in an alternate view of a previously documented scene. This 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative, produced by the Detroit Publishing Company, offers a detailed glimpse of the historic incline. In 1906, Vicksburg, Mississippi, saw the First National Bank and Carroll Hotel at Washington and Clay Streets. Completed in 1907, this junior skyscraper became the tallest building in the state, preserved on a shop-worn 8x10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. In December 1942, a locomotive crosses the ash pit at the roundhouse of a Chicago and Northwestern rail yard in Chicago, Illinois. This striking image was captured by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information, preserving a vital moment of wartime industry. In December 1942, workers iced a refrigerator car inside the freight house of a Chicago and Northwestern rail yard in Chicago, Illinois. Photographer Jack Delano, for the Office of War Information, documented this essential task supporting wartime transport and logistics. In October 1942, the loading rack at the Mid-Continent Refinery in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is shown at the Tulsa station of the Great Lakes Pipeline. This image, captured by John Varchin for the Office of War Information, highlights vital wartime energy infrastructure. In June 1941, a Detroit, Michigan, neighborhood marks the birthplace of Charles A. Lindbergh at West Forest and Hamilton Avenues. The Forham Pharmacy and Dutch's Railway roast beef stand prominently, captured by Arthur S. Siegel for the Office of War Information. In January 1943, Marjorie Muller serves as the lone resident nurse at the clinic in Penobscot, New Mexico, operated by the Taos County Cooperative Health Association. This poignant moment was captured on an acetate negative by John Collier for the Office of War Information. Around 1908, a Packard Model 30 limousine from the Packard Motor Car Company is documented in Detroit, marked Autoalgia on the negative and bearing the RAA monogram on its door. The vehicle is preserved on a Detroit Publishing glass negative. Around 1900, a man and boy fish with a cane pole from the shore. This serene scene is preserved on an 8x10-inch glass copy negative of a print by the Detroit Photographic Company. Around 1910, a group stands in front of a house, possibly schoolchildren and teachers, identified as Mrs. R. Jake on the negative. This moment is captured on an 8x10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. Around 1908, a Packard touring car is parked beside a tented entrance to a club or dwelling, its door trim matching the striped marquee. This scene is preserved on an 8x10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. On May 10, 1912, the gas holder at Station A of the Detroit City Gas Company is documented. This gasometer structure is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. On April 28, 1909, in Wyandotte, Michigan, the launching party celebrates the steamer Benjamin Noble. Exactly 5 years later, on the same date in 1914, the freighter sank in a Lake Superior squall, claiming all hands, captured on an 8x10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. Around 1908 in Detroit, an automobile is parked before a 3-story house with a side porch. Next door, a construction site displays a sign, "These lots for sale. Inquire W.S. Pocock." This view is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. Around 1910, a boy and girl sit together in a rustic arbor, identified as Donald Fuller on the negative. This charming scene is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. On May 9, 1913, the north end of a gas holder at the Detroit City Gas Company is documented, noting that some assembly is required. This industrial scene is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. Around 1900, the Chateau of Frontenac and Dufferin Terrace dominate Quebec City's skyline, built by the Canadian Pacific Railway on a bluff overlooking the St. Lawrence River. This majestic hotel opened in 1893, captured on an 8x10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. In 1906, Atlantic City is captured with a Sandman, accompanied by the lower half of the Kite Guy. This whimsical scene, reminding viewers not to forget the worker, is preserved on a 5 by 7-inch glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. Around 1904, the Brooklyn Bridge spans the East River in New York, with the Williamsburg Bridge visible in the distance. This iconic urban scene is preserved on an 8 by 10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Graphic Company. Around 1904, Cale Galliano in Havana, Cuba, is shown, where clothing and silk goods are offered at the big store. This vibrant street scene is preserved on an 8 by 10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. Around 1904, the courtyard of Hotel Florida on Cayo Obispo in Havana, Cuba, is captured. This serene view of the hotel's interior space is preserved on an 8 by 10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. In March 1942, a laboratory technician is documented at Provident Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, a prominent institution serving the African American community. This image was captured on an acetate negative by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In the summer of 1941, a group of girls is captured in Detroit, including 3 from a card game and 3 others who did not participate. This moment is preserved on an acetate negative by Arthur Siegel. In the summer of 1941, Arthur Siegel captured another scene in Detroit, showing girls settling in for the night after their card game. This photograph, part of a curious series, is preserved with the Library of Congress annotation "Killed Not." In Salt Lake City, Tony Granary, a World War II veteran and Purple Heart recipient, poses with his new 1957 Dodge Royal Lancer at his home. He sustained leg injuries during the war and remains never wearing shorts afterward. On May 13, 1942, Detroit, Michigan, hosts a style show presented by the Chrysler Girls Club at Saks Fifth Avenue, alongside scenes at the Chrysler plant. Office workers, including one powdering her chin, type various forms, captured by Arthur Siegel for the Office of War Information. On May 31, 1943, a young horn player participates in Decoration Day ceremonies in Gallipolis, Ohio. This moment is preserved on an acetate negative by Arthur Siegel for the Office of War Information. In February 1943, an Italian-American fruit stand operates at 1st Avenue and 10th Street in New York City. This street scene is captured on an acetate negative by Marjorie Collins for the Office of War Information. In the fall of 1942, Detroit, Michigan, hosts a style show featuring attire worn by the city's better-dressed office workers, presented by the Chrysler Girls Club at Saks Fifth Avenue. This scene is captured on a 4 by 5 acetate negative by Arthur S. Siegel for the Office of War Information. February 1943, Italian-American children warmed their hands by a fruit stand outside a grocery store at 1st Avenue and 10th Street in New York City. This moment is preserved on a medium format acetate negative by Marjorie Collins for the Office of War Information. Around 1900, golfers and their dogs are captured at the White Mountain House in New Hampshire. This leisurely scene is preserved on an 8 by 10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. 1910, the Singer Tower rises above Liberty and Nassau streets in New York City. At 612 feet, it had been the world's tallest building from 1908 to 1909, serving as headquarters for the Singer Sewing Machine Company. Captured on an 11 by 14-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. Circa 1960, 2 brothers are pictured at 1018 Jones Avenue, Racine, Wisconsin, in a family 35mm slide. The location appears unfamiliar, possibly a neighbor's house in South Bend, Indiana, where the family had previously visited. Around 1900, golfers gather at the White Mountain House in New Hampshire. This leisurely scene, capturing early 20th century recreation, is preserved on an 8 by 10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. Around 1907, a view of Woodward Avenue in Detroit is captured from City Hall. The scene includes Campus Martis, flanked by the majestic building and Michigan Avenue on the left, and the Detroit Opera House on the right, preserved on an 8 by 10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. In February 1943, a physical education class takes place at Bethune-Cookman College in Daytona Beach, Florida. This moment is captured on a 4 by 5-inch acetate negative by Gordon Parks for the Office of War Information. In February 1943, girls in the dormitory at Bethune-Cookman College in Daytona Beach, Florida, greet one another affectionately. each calling the other roommate. This moment is captured by Gordon Parks for the Office of War Information. In February 1942, an early morning view in Detroit, Michigan, looks toward downtown from a slum area. These images show the conditions families endured before relocating to the Sojourner Truth Housing Project, captured on a 4x5 acetate negative by Arthur Siegel for Life magazine. February 1942, an early morning view in Detroit, Michigan, captures the slum area looking toward downtown. These photographs reveal the living conditions families endured before moving to the Sojourner Truth Housing Project, documented on a 4x5 acetate negative by Arthur Siegel for Life magazine. In February 1943, one of the Pennsylvania Railroad's giant 6,100 Class T1 prototype engines departs Union Station in Chicago, Illinois, hauling the Manhattan Limited. This moment is preserved on a medium format acetate negative by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In February 1943, at Rio Grande in Gallia County, Ohio, a farm labor training program supports wartime food production. Mrs. Yonkers is shown grading eggs, while 3 boys from her family are prepared to assist. Photo by John Vachin for the Office of War Information. In February 1943, inside the interlocking tower at Union Station in Chicago, Illinois, men control all inbound and outbound train traffic entirely by the board, rarely looking out a window to see an actual train, captured on an acetate negative by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In January 1943, Marjorie Mueller serves as a Red Cross nurse at the Penobsco, New Mexico clinic operated by the Taos County Cooperative Health Association. With rare mail, she relies on the radio for news, captured on an acetate negative by John Collier for the Office of War Information. 1900, the Hotel Netherlands stands at 5th Avenue and 59th Street in New York City. This marks our 6th look at the historic hostelry, preserved on an 8x10-inch glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. Around 1901, St. Paul's Chapel and the St. Paul Building are captured at Vesey Street and Broadway in Manhattan, New York. This urban scene is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. Around 1901, Crescent Walk at Makatawa Park in Ottawa County, Michigan, is captured, showcasing the scenic lakeside area. This view is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Photographic Company. Around 1912, the Baltimore waterfront and skyline are dominated by the Emerson Tower, better known as the Bromo Seltzer Tower, topped with a 20-ton Bromo bottle. This iconic view is preserved on an 8x10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. In March 1943, switchmen are seen riding one of the Topeka and Santa Fe diesel switch engines in Chicago, Illinois. This moment is captured by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In June 1943, New Britain, Connecticut, a hub of essential war industries, is depicted with a woman railroad crossing watcher lowering the gates as a train passes, captured on a 4x5-inch acetate negative by Gordon Parks for the Office of War Information. In April 1943, the waiting room of the railroad station in San Augustine, Texas, offers a glimpse into life in a small town. This scene is preserved on an acetate negative by John Vachin for the Office of War Information. January 1943, the icing platform of the Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad at Blue Island Yard, south of Chicago, is documented. This industrial scene is captured on an acetate negative by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In May 1943, Beaumont, Texas, highlights women stepping into traditionally male roles during wartime. A woman operates block signals from a railroad crossing signal tower, captured on a medium format acetate negative by John Vachin for the Office of War Information. In January 1943, the Blue Island Yard of the Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad in Riverdale, Illinois is shown, including a view of the icing platform. This industrial scene is captured by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In January 1943, freight operations at the Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad are documented in Riverdale, Illinois. The scene shows a grain elevator and mill at a siding of the Blue Island Yard, south of Chicago, captured on a medium format acetate negative by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. In January 1943, a Chicago and Northwestern Railroad freight train travels from Clinton, Iowa, to Chicago. stopping in Nelson, Illinois, for coal and water to allow passenger trains the right of way, captured on an acetate negative by Jack Delano for the Office of War Information. 1907, the Atlantic City Boardwalk and Young's $1 Million Pier are captured, including the tickler attraction Beyond Marine Hall, modeled after a popular Coney Island ride. At least 2 box kites fly above on a windy day, preserved on an 8 by 10-inch dry plate glass negative by the Detroit Publishing Company. In 1907, the Atlantic City Boardwalk is shown with its attractions, including Young's $1 Million Pier and the Hotel Marlborough featuring the Marlborough House at center and the domed Blenheim to the left. This panorama combines to 8 by 10 glass negatives by the Detroit Publishing Company. In the summer of 1950, downtown Cleveland, Ohio, is captured with the Union Terminal Group, including the Terminal Tower and Hotel Cleveland. This urban scene is preserved in a gelatin silver print by Carl McDowell. This women's bathroom, designed by Paul Rudolph, features mirrors by the National Association of Mirror Manufacturers, a Kohler shampoo center, and alcoves for a Kohler toilet and bidet open to nature. A miniature lawn of mopheads covers the floor, with a doll light projection screen nearby. Colored transparencies were made for the February 1976 House and Garden article on Rudolph's innovative bath designs. In November 1942, the Champion No. 1 cleaning plant near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is shown with loaded coal cars ready for market. This industrial scene is captured by John Collier for the Office of War Information. In November 1942, a mantrip transports workers into the Westland coal mine near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This image of wartime industrial labor is preserved on an acetate negative by John Collier for the Office of War Information. In November 1942, the Champion No. 1 coal cleaning plant near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is shown loading cars with clean coal, documenting industrial activity during the wartime period. Photo by John Collier for the Office of War Information. In November 1942, Andy Piatnik, a miner and Office of Civilian Defense instructor, is pictured at home with his family near the Montour No. 4 mine of the Pittsburgh Coal Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, captured on an acetate negative by John Collier for the Office of War Information.